Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, your host on this journey into the outdoors. This time of year, it's about training young dogs, maybe some testing coming up in the springtime, late spring, and all the things that matter to us. Particularly this week, we'll be talking about keeping your dogs safe and healthy. My guest is Alex Langbell. Alex is the founder of a company called Gundog Outdoors. I was intrigued with their, well, I'll call it an everything kit for gun dog safety and first aid. Saw him first and met him at Pheasant Fest, and looking forward to having a long and fruitful discussion about taking care of your dog, particularly when it comes to his health and well-being. Of course, we've got lots more, including the Upland Nation glossary, where we hit the letter I. And if you have suggestions, I could sure use a few in that world. I have a chance for you to win a shotgun. And boy, did I fire up the internet with that question about why some people won't take a newcomer hunting. So we'll be covering a little bit more of your comments on that topic as we get deeper into the Upland Nation podcast. We're made possible by RuffLand Performance Kennels, Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Pointer Shotguns, Dr. Tim's Natural Performance Dog Food, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, and AudioCardio.com. Well, how's your week going? Maybe you're listening on the weekend, and maybe you're getting out into the field with your dog, doing some training. Highest priority around here, by the way, finding some target ammo once in a while, so that's also getting moved up on the list. Doing a little bit more practice in that world, but right now it's all about that covey flush and steady to wing shot and fall with flick. We're making progress every day. What's your objective? Been talking about that a little bit on Facebook as well, so cover some of those in coming weeks. We're also looking for some training water. It's the constant battle out here in the high desert, looking for a good piece of pond that has everything we need, a little vegetation, a little bit of depth, and something a little closer than the stuff I have to drive to. If you're a NAVDA member, you know the drill. It is tough to find the perfect piece of water. But we keep looking. And we get lucky once in a while, and some of those are public and most of them are not. So it's one of those tests for the humans getting ready to put their dogs to the test. All right, we got Alex coming up in just a moment. Let me remind you that we are brought to you in part by Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products. They're crafted at the highest caliber. Always free shipping, I think I mentioned that. They've got anything you need in the way of taking care of your hunting guns and all your other guns for that matter as well. From educational videos to all the hardware and tools you need, cases of various sorts to carry your gear in and to carry all your cleaning stuff in. And one of the things I saw very, very long time ago in its prototype stage, and now it is perfected. It is the one-pull bore cleaner. You know, the snake kind of style. Well, this one is so well thought out, so flexible in its uses, and so easy to use, period. You got to check it out. It's all at sageandbreaker.com. And just got a load of catalogs from my good friends at Pointer Shotguns. If you'd like to get your own copy, you can pick it up online or they will send you one. Glad to do that. Go to legacysports.com. That's where you take a look at the full line of Pointer Shotguns. They got a little of everything, from starter guns for kids, smaller guns for youth, and smaller statured adults. Over and unders, semi-automatics. They got high-end Acreus to entry-level target, field, and all of them are available with that Cerakote finish in various colors. Learn more about the Pointer Shotgun line at legacysports.com. Well, I said in the introduction, I was intrigued with his gear when I walked past, and enough so that we got to talking. And yeah, somebody else who's as concerned about their dogs as I am in the field and right after we're hunting, on the tailgate, if you will. Alex Langbell joins me. Alex, thanks for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast.
You betcha. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You know, my eye was first caught by your what you call the Gundog Outdoors Field Trauma Kit, and I know you're differentiating between that and just a simple first aid kit or something like that. We'll get into that as well. But you've got some other things we'll talk about at your booth there, and then all of the other things you're thinking about all the time, particularly things that we can probably do better in the field. But let's start with your background, because you and I share a couple bits of common ground somewhere in there, don't we?
We sure do. We sure do. I'm sure just like you, grew up in a hunting family. I've been hunting and fishing. So I can remember earliest age is 3 years old, 4 years old, tromped around the woods of Montana. And so I just got that as a background. And then I just really have always owned dogs. I mean, we've always owned dogs in our family. And so I just kind of started that transition. Next thing you know, I ended up becoming a hunting guide and did that for 10 years. And next thing you know, I put a video camera in my hand and started making hunting videos. And then I was approached by a couple of companies and they wanted me to produce a TV show for them. So I produced 2 TV shows, The Foul Life with Chad Belding. I did that the first 3 years, produced that with my camera guys, and did the Grind Waterfowl TV, started that show. They're both actually still on TV. Started both those shows, and yeah, I've just been in the industry for a long time. And then I realized through forever that there just really wasn't any companies focused on the safety of hunting dogs. I mean, yeah, they make like vests and stuff, but there's nothing really that's our main goal. And that's kind of where, having a background, I was a firefighter EMT for 27 years. So I've seen every kind of injury that can happen to a human and to a dog. And I've seen a lot of stuff that I really didn't agree with when I was traveling the country, filming TV shows and stuff like that. I just realized there needed to be more education, more awareness on that subject, because these dogs are no longer the old school way with their tools. Well, these aren't tools. These are our best friends. They're sleeping in our houses now, in our beds and stuff like that. So yeah, that's just been my mission now with this company, is just getting awareness out, providing products that make life a lot easier in preparedness, because people don't think about, injury after the fact, or how it's like buying a fire extinguisher after you have a fire. It just, unless you've been subjected to that or you're in the industry, you don't really think about that stuff. And so, yeah, that's kind of where the whole concept of the Gundog Outdoors came from.
Well, that first part of that story makes me wonder why it's taken so long for you and me to get together on something. But we'll talk about that over several dozen beers someday. You brought up something that I'm intrigued with, and I'm that way as well. When I was a Boy Scout leader, and then I produced a Boy Scout TV show, and all of that, and on to now, the whole idea of being prepared. I know it's a cliche, but it's also true.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times what I do is when I'm gearing up for a trip, I think about, okay, maybe I'll be fine, but what about him and him? And we've all got the story. And I'll never forget the one time I was on the other side of a draw from a buddy, and I hear a bang, and then I see him sitting on the ground. And so I, over ice-covered streams and everything else, I get over to the other side thinking the guy shot himself in the foot. Now, don't ask me how I jumped to that conclusion, but it wasn't true, of course. But he was glad that I was there. Luckily, I didn't have to pull out my own field trauma kit. But the idea of being prepared is something, how do you impress upon people the importance of that when it comes to their dog?
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, first of all, these animals, there's so much drive in some of them. They just go and go and go, and they'll come back injured, and you don't even know it. And they're just so tough. You might hear a little yelp, and then they come back. I've heard stories of dogs getting bit by snakes, and they hear a yelp, and they don't think anything of it. Next thing you know, the dog's pretty much dying right there. They're just tough. So So the biggest thing is just awareness and paying attention to what's going on with your dog. Us the waterfowl hunters, you got to pay attention. It's cold weather. The colder it is, the better the hunting is. And unfortunately, you're throwing your dog out there, and all you got's a 5mm vest on. And I mean, they got a living, they're living creatures with a heartbeat and blood flowing through them. So they need to be monitored. They're not invincible. And so that's kind of, where I come in. Is just like, letting people know that just pay attention to your dogs and be prepared for anything that happens. Make sure they're hydrated. They're athletes. Think about what they're doing. I go on a goose hunt and my dog retrieves 15 to 20 birds running as fast as you can back and forth. I mean, or to go pheasant hunting and they're running the entire 4 hours. They need water. They need to make sure they're not getting, thorns and seeds and burrs and all that stuff. So it just, and for the most part, it's the older hunters realize that only because they've seen it happen to their dogs, but it's the new hunters who haven't really experienced that, and they get a new dog and they're running it and they don't realize all of a sudden their dog is panting, their tail's drooping or whatever, and they're going to, heat exhaustion because they didn't drink water, or you didn't prepare them, or you didn't feed them correctly. So that's the whole idea of just education and awareness.
Yeah, the awareness thing. I talk about it all the time in a more of a hunting and a strategic context. How if you're watching your dog, paying attention to your dog, you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to be able to teach that dog more as well. But it was a veterinary orthopedic surgeon many years ago said to me, your dog, like you said, Alex, is not going to show pain very often, and it could be anything, like you said, from a snake bite to a broken toe. And I've lived through all of the above. Most of the time, it's something very subtle, and you mentioned tail drooping or slowing down. The other things that I've seen a lot is coming out of the kennel real slow in the morning, or not jumping up onto the tailgate. There's a whole bunch of things that will, if you know to look for them, are pretty good indications. Can you think of any others like that we ought to add to our list?
Oh yeah. Like you said, that's so important. I mean, your dog, what your dog normally acts like. If your dog is not acting normal, there's something wrong with it. And then that's the biggest thing, is paying attention to them. And the tail droop is a big one. Excessive panting is a big one. Laying down in the heat. I mean, if they're laying down, especially if the upland bird hunters, they're running around out there chasing, if they're all of a sudden looking for shade and laying there excessively pant, take a break, sit down, give them some water, get yourself some water, get them in the air conditioned truck if it gets to that point. It's just like the over exertion of dogs, especially with what we do, is just so dangerous. I mean, it is. So, excessive panting, like I said, just not acting normal. The tail droop is a big one. Not wanting to get in the water. Now, if your dog, for those waterfowl hunters out there, and I've seen this firsthand, I've seen dogs go into seizures and do all that fun stuff. But if your dog does not want to go in the water, when it normally wants to go in the water, do not get mad at it and throw it in the water. Yeah. That's the most ridiculous thing you can do, and you're risking that dog's life. I've actually seen that, and anyway, I had words with the owner on that. Good. He learned his lesson.
and you might have saved a dog's life for that matter. There's one other thing, and you mentioned heat, and a lot of us forget that the biggest dog killers out there are the cold and the heat. I was in South Dakota for a governor's hunt a few years back, and that's generally a couple weekends after opening day, and by then all the stories were circulating about all the dogs that had died on opening weekend. It was 80 degrees, and there was a lot of overweight, out of condition dogs that were forced to hunt all day, maybe all weekend, and that'll do it. But along those lines, overheated dogs, another one. It looks cute, it's kind of funny, and we all take the picture. And that is, not only do they seek shade, but they'll seek shade and then they'll dig down a few inches and lay in their hole that they've made. If your dog is digging holes in hot weather, it's time to quit, man. Just stop, give them water, and go back.
You're so absolutely right on that. It's just so important. And like you said, these dogs, like I was saying earlier, these dogs are athletes. But if you don't train, you don't see any football players go out and not practice, or basketball players not practice, all of a sudden go play a full game. out there with no practice. They're overweight. They haven't trained all season. Now all of a sudden they're playing the big game. That's the same thing when you're taking these dogs out and you're going, especially in the early season, and these dogs are not in shape because they've sat around or you've been too busy to train them. If that's what's happening, take your time and just don't hunt it as hard. You just don't. It's not going to go and hunt for 4 hours. I'm sorry if you have a lab who's 8 years old out of shape.
Yeah,
it just isn't going to happen. So.
Yeah, every day's a Super Bowl for your gun dog, that's for sure. So Alex Langbell at gundogoutdoors.com. You guys are listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. If you were, speaking of Super Bowl, if you were going to have your best hunt of the season and you had one last season, what is it? Is it a waterfowl hunt, and how did it go?
Oh, wow. Well, I am a diehard waterfowler. I do love hunting. I do everything from big game hunting to, fishing, all that stuff. But waterfowling is if I had mallards, duck hunting would be my thing. And I've had some amazing hunting. I live up here in Montana now. Had some great hunting. Last year, I managed to go and hunt in some of the smaller rivers on a jet boat around here, which is absolutely my favorite because you're shooting ducks in tight quarters and they're just beautiful green heads and dropping in. And I just something about that. And I love watching the dogs work. And it's just a great experience to be able to do stuff, more of that stuff. So I've had a couple of phenomenal hunts.
Well, we can do that with the drift boat on the Deschutes once in a while. Not many people are doing it these days. They used to do it 20, 30 years ago a lot more often. Yeah. But I'm intrigued now because I know some of those rivers you're on, I bet, and I don't know that I've ever thought about hunting them. Describe a jet boat duck hunt. I mean, that's just so cool.
Oh, it is amazing. It's like you're running either a jet boat or you're running one of those mud motors that because that's the only way you're going to do it. A prop won't work on these rivers. Or so sometimes you just got to get out and push the boat into your spot, which we've done. But they're just small rivers, and you just get in there. And these ducks, I mean, again, when you're hunting small water, there's not much they can. If you find where they're sitting, you're setting up and you're taking shots at 20 yards, 30 yards, and it's just right in your face, and it's just really neat. And then you got I love the fact, especially because there's trees lined all around the river. There's they're dropping in these trees, so it's somewhat of I don't want to say a timber hunt, but as close as you're going to get out west to what a true timber hunt is, the way they drop in and stuff. But some of the funnest wing shooting I've experienced, and I've done this for a long time. And don't get me wrong, I love hunting big geese and pheasants and all that, chucker. Except maybe not chuckers as I get older.
Oh, come on, I'll get you out. If I can do it, you can do it.
Yes.
I've seen your biceps, man. If they're anything like your quads, you're going to be carrying me back.
I'll be at the bottom. How's that?
Yeah.
You flush him down to me. I'll flush him back up to you.
So, just for the record, because watch out. I might come in and ask permission to go with you on one of these. You're blowing up. Let's say you got a jet boat. You're blowing upstream, and then at some point you got to cut that motor, if nothing else. Because that's probably illegal, but at least it is in my state. I shouldn't say that. So then what do you do? You just float back downstream?
Oh, no.
What do you do?
No, we use the jet boats to find where the ducks are sitting.
Okay, all right.
And then we bring a blind, we build a blind right on the river. We throw out our decoys. We hide the jet boat around the corner, walk down the river, and we're shooting at it. We're not drifting. We're not. We're decoying ducks at 20 yards. So I mean, we shot them at feet. We were shooting them the other.
Wow.
30 feet, 10 yards.
Wow.
One hunt. So that's in your face. You don't bring your full choke to that game.
Yeah. So okay, now I get it. So basically, it's almost like just hiding out at a little tiny pothole somewhere.
Absolutely.
But it's a moving pothole, and it's really long.
That's right. And I know you're familiar with Montana, but we get cold here, so any still water is no longer, it's ice. So you have to hit so that's what you hit. If you want to kill ducks here, you got to hit that moving water later in the season. So It's a lot of fun. But it can be challenging. I mean, getting on the boat ramp when it's iced up, bring your chains. It's not for the fair weather hunter. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, well, you guys are a different breed altogether. I mean, it's not just because you wear camouflage either. It's there's something else up a little bit higher there. So what kind? I think I met one of your dogs, a little black Labrador. But are you a Labrador guy all the time?
You know what? I've had English Springer Spaniels. I've had Brittany's. I've had Labs. I've had Chesapeakes. I'm a hunting dog guy. I love dogs, and so this just happens to be the dog that I have right now. She's a sweet little 60-pound black lab, 5 years old. She's just a rock star. We're actually getting ready to pick up another dog, a male, and we're gonna really focus him on more of the upland slash waterfowl. This little girl, she's more of the waterfowl, but I do need an upland bird dog now that I'm living over here in Montana. Originally, I lived in Washington, Eastern Washington, so we really didn't have the upland birds that we had a long time ago. But now that I'm moving into Montana, there's South Dakota, North Dakota is not far away. Eastern Montana's got some great upland stuff. So it's just time for me to get an upland. And I know there's some better upland bird dogs, pointers out there. And I thought about getting, some of those dogs like, German short hair or something like that. But it's just, for me, the Labs has just been a dog that's just easy for me to, they have a switch, it seems like, where some of those, some of those GSPs, there is no switch.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste. Absolutely. I just, in fact, in the puppy issue of Gundog magazine, just out now, I wrote a story, and it opens with, if you're looking for a first dog, get a Lab. And then it closes with, no matter where you are in the process, get a Lab. So kind of where I'm at. And most people are, and I get it. So glad to hear it, and good luck on your search for a male. Well,
we actually have one in the breeding right now, so we're picking it up. Yeah, so we're excited. We got first choice on a yellow male, so hopefully it comes out. Obviously, we don't know what it's going to be, but yeah, we got, and it's close by. It's in Missoula, Montana. The breeder is, so
okay.
It comes from a good stock. But yeah, I agree. But honestly, I love hunting with my buddies who do have like a Brittany or so, a pointing. I just love hunting over pointing dogs. They're just so amazing. But I don't own one.
Well, that's the right way to do it. The best dog to have is your best friends.
Yes.
So you said something that I'm just intrigued by, and we talked Labradors last week on the Upland Nation podcast as well. Did you settle on yellow first, or the breeding first, or what? I mean, how important is color to a guy like you?
To me, it's because you're dealing with some of the top. I just know a lot of the top guys in this industry as far as breeders and just the history. I've been doing this a long time, and the black lab, they say the black lab is supposedly the original color of the St. John's dog, which is a Labrador, and they said that the best genes to where you're not going to have any issues. They're the smartest dog is the black one. That's what they're saying. The yellow is like the next best, and then they say the browns are. You got some good browns, but they say, I hate saying this, an inferior gene, but that's kind of what these breeders will say. And even there are some breeders out there that won't even breed anything but black labs.
Sure.
So, but I've hunted over amazing all color, chocolates and yellows and fox red now, which is basically just a yellow and black. But no, I just honestly, I was looking for a good breeding, good healthy, smaller. I like a smaller frame dog because they just last longer. Their joints don't wear out, their hips don't wear out. They seem like they have longer longevity in life. They're not like a bull in a china shop when you're waterfowl hunting, blind. They're just, I just prefer smaller dogs now. And I've had 90-pound Chessies that are amazingly tough dogs, but they also, they start getting older, they have problems, 6, 7 years old, they're already having hip problems.
Yeah.
And you don't have, if you really look at the lifespan of a dog when you have in its prime, it's so, the window is so short that it's just like you want to, in order to make it as long as you can, take care of your dog, feed it good food, make sure it's healthy. You don't subject it to a bunch of over exertion, heat exhaustion, stuff like that, because that wears on. Once you've had heat stroke or heat exhaustion, that is something you'll be susceptible forever, and that goes with humans and dogs. So that's another thing that we try to get across. I try to get across, and our company does, is just these are important things to make sure, extend the longevity of your dog by taking care of it. And because like, again, you just don't have that window. It's so short on when they're just a rock star. You're like, I got the best dog ever, but you get to the point, 8 years old, 9-year-old dogs, where they start wearing down. You can't take them out every day, so.
Absolutely. Amen to all of that and more. And we're just getting warmed up around here at the Upland Nation podcast. That's Alex Langbell. He's with GundogOutdoors.com. We're going to dive deep, literally, into this field trauma kit in just a few minutes on the program. But before we do, let's just touch on some of the most common injuries that you hear about, that you see, that people tell you about. You're sitting there at the Pheasant Fest booth talking to people about, hey, taking care of your dog, particularly your dog's health and well-being, and they've all got stories. What are some of the more common stories about hurt dogs that you see?
Yeah, so the most common story I get, and this is especially for your upland bird dogs, is going to be injuries like tears, from barbed wire fences, from I've seen waterfowl dogs take corn stalks in the chest, and impale them basically. So it's just, but the most common ones are going to be your cuts and stuff like that. You're just where you got open wounds. They step on a pad, or they rip their pad open, or their ear catching on a fence, or there's thorn. These Russian olives that we have all over the West are just brutal on these dogs. They'll flatten an ATV tire. What do you think they'll do at a dog pad? Based on it. So,
unfortunately, that's where the sharp tails like to be.
Yes, it is. Yes, exactly. So, but those are probably the most common injury I see, is just open wounds, cuts, and or I hear of, and and I've seen myself. Obviously, doing this for as long as I have. But so the main thing is just knowing and identifying it, and if it's bad enough, you need to stop the bleeding, and then take care of that wound. And I've had it so much where guys will buy. We started carrying skin staplers in our kits, and that was necessary. And this is a kind of a iffy subject as far as skin staplers, because there's some that say you don't want to necessarily use it for someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Yeah. But there's times people like your hound hunters who running bears and cats and pigs, where they need that because they're up in the woods, or like I've been in a situation where I've been up in Canada, nowhere near a veterinarian, and you get a dog injured and you need to close that wound. And so that's why we start carrying it. But I tell people on that skin stapler that we carry, it's like if you're within a couple of hours of a veterinarian, you don't need it. There's enough stuff in our kit where you can protect the wound, wrap it up, stop the bleeding, and get it to a vet where they've sold thousands of dogs or hundreds of dogs. They know how to sew it up right and make to where it's not an ugly scar. Whereas if you've never done it before, it's not the easiest thing to do on a dog, especially if you're by yourself. Yeah. So that's what. But sometimes you need that safety thing, like I was saying, for those who are out in the middle of nowhere. So that's kind of one of the big things I talk to a lot of guys who come through, and they're talking about, my dog got injured, got ripped and stuff like that. And I try to make it very clear to them on whether or not to add that option, because that's what's nice about our kit. You can buy it with or without the skin stapler. Yeah, and I love that idea. I have learned the hard way how difficult it is to actually staple a squirming dog's skin. And then, if you don't do it right, you're just doing it again and again and again, and pretty soon nobody's having any fun. We're gonna dig into the field trauma kit and more of this kind of tailgate first aid, if you
will, coming up on the Upland Nation podcast. Alex, take a couple minutes to relax, put your feet up. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our sponsors and remind everybody else out there, we still got our Upland glossary coming up. We're on the letter I, so start thinking about what letter I you might put in there. And then, the firestorm, if you will, on my personal Facebook page regarding why some people will never, ever take a newcomer hunting again. And I got to tell you, they got some pretty good arguments once in a while. But it all comes after this message from audiocardio.com. It's a workout for your ears. You may not know this, but you can figure it out pretty quickly. Go to audiocardio.com. Measure your own hearing acuity. Yeah, they got a little test there. It's free. And then they have a 14-day free trial on basically an app. So you just take the app, put it on your phone, put your earbuds in every day, go about your business. You won't even hear anything. That's how subtle it is. But your ears are being, given effectively physical therapy. Plug in your earbuds, go about your day. Once a day, do that. If you want to learn more, watch the 2-minute video at audiocardio.com. Or for those of you who really need it, watch the video at audiocardio.com. All right, and I can't say enough about my RuffLand kennel. First off, designed by Bird Dog Guys. Thank you, Doug, for all of the great innovations. RuffLand is spelled RuffLand, kennels.com. A couple things that make my life a lot easier. The first is I got mine with a side door and a front door. And it just so happens that the way I have the back of my pickup configured right now, the side door is the most handy place to run Flick in and out. It's also where I hang his RuffLand Kennels fan. Run that thing off of my battery jump starter, so it runs on 12 volt, and can it put out the air. And finally, Doug, Elisa, thank you, everybody over there, for making doors that will open from either side. So you're facing a door. You got a latch on the left side of the door and a latch on the right side of the door. Depending on what your dog is doing or you're doing, you want to open it from the right or open it from the left, or take it off all together so you can clean it out. It's all handy. It's all easy to do at RuffLandKennels.com. And hopefully I didn't scare Alex Langbell away. Alex, you still with us?
I am still with you.
Oh, thank goodness. A little, once in a while, everybody just hangs up and goes away. No,
You're stuck with me.
Well, I don't mind at all. One more time for the record, GundogOutdoors.com is where you learn more about all of his stuff. And I keep putting it off, but I'm not going to anymore. I've got in front of me the field trauma kit that you gave to me, and I'm unzipping and unsnapping parts of it now. We don't have the 2 weeks it would take to go through all the stuff in here, that's for sure. But you've got one handy as well. So take, I'll call it the front, the little pocket on the front. Let's just take a look at some of that stuff. I'm going to pull some of it out. I regret that because it'll never fit back in. But the first thing that caught my eye, even when we talked in person, was you have a hot pack, and then I think inside we'll find a cold pack as well. Why do we need a hot pack or a cold pack for a dog?
Okay, so both, like we were talking about earlier on the show, hypothermia, which is the body core temperature getting too high above its normal operating levels, and or hypothermia, which is too low, obviously, is dangerous. They're the two most dangerous conditions that we really find that could actually kill your dog in the field. And so by having a hot pack and a cold pack, this is going to start to reverse the process of that if you identify what's going on with your dog. Yeah. So obviously the hot pack and along with that is this Mylar rescue blanket, and you kind of use them in conjunction. And the way it works is if your dog gets to the point where where it gets too cold, where it's going into hypothermia, and we'll go over some of the signs and symptoms because on that. But once you identify that, you basically activate the hot pack. You wrap them up in this. You dry them off first of all as best as you can, and then you activate this hot pack, and then you put it against their abdomen area. Don't put it directly on the fur, the skin. You kind of wrap it in maybe some of the gauze that's in this packaging, and then you put the blanket around there, and you start the immediate process of warming them up. And I've actually seen this on a dog where they did go into hypothermia and started going into seizures. And luckily we had a heater, and that's something that I always when I'm waterfowl hunting, bring a small portable heater for the dog. And it's not necessarily for me, which I have used, but mainly it's for the dog for that situation. And if we would not have had that heater, that dog would not be here today. So we got it. The body core temperature reversed. And so this is a simple way that can help by putting this hot pack against the body and the Mylar blanket. And then we're on the other end of it, the cold pack, that's your exertion, your overheating, your early September goose hunts or your pheasant hunts in October, to where your dog just overheats and it's going bad quickly. You activate that cold pack and you get it along, it's belly, same thing. That's where all the vitals are, and you start that cooling process, get it into air condition. And what's nice about it, in that same pouch, I have I call it an emergency care field guide, a reference guide, and it goes through pretty much every injury that your dog can get in the field, from like both we talked about hypothermia, and then it goes over cuts and wounds and abrasions. It goes into even like gunshot wounds, applying a tourniquet if it gets too bad, seizures, what to do, snake bites, what to do, eye injuries, thorns and quills, which is a big one for us upland bird hunters. Constantly getting thorns, or porcupine quills. That's another one. So anyway, this reference guide is just really nice to kind of goes over signs and symptoms, and the treatment of it, and stuff like that.
And nothing extraneous. I'm going to say it's probably 6 or 8 pages long altogether, and compact. But you have all the important stuff in there, including, like you said, the symptoms for all these things, and then a pair of gloves just in case if you're worried about that. So I'm opening up the rest of it right now. There's some tools in there. First off, and you got tools that I need to know why you have both a hemostat and a pair of tweezers, for example.
Sure. The hemostat, originally when we first when I put the aid kit together, the hemostat was to try to, the hemostat for porcupine quills, bottom line. Yeah. There's so many dogs get into quill, porcupine and stuff like that. And also it talks about it in the reference guide. Like you can get to a point where you've got a lot of quills in the nose and the mouth and stuff which happens a lot. It's almost better to take it to the vet. I talk about that and trying to remove it, but there's times that you can remove it yourself. So you need a good pair of pliers or these hemostats or forceps, as I call them. And the tweezers I got in there, it's just for small, like sometimes you get dogs who get seeds in there, like the eyelids. Pull, so stuff like that, or even thorns and stuff that you can get out, or it's just for detailed being able to pull stuff out. And then and then we have the trauma shears, which is a big scissors that I carried as a firefighter for 26 years. I had one of these in my bunker, and I can't tell you how many times I've used this in cutting seatbelts, out of cars to get people out, or cutting small gauge wire, stuff like that. So this is a great tool and a scissors. It's for cutting the bandages. It's for cutting whatever. If you got, it's just a heavy duty paramedic quality shears that like I said, every paramedic carries, just because it's a great cutting tool. And so that's what, So and then that's the three tools.
And then there's a bottle of liquid in here, and I really like what I think I'm reading on the label, because it is mainly water.
It's a saline, and it's majority water, obviously, but I use that to flush out stuff. These dogs, they come back and they just get dirty. They get, especially their eyes, like I said, the seeds, and I've seen that stuff. And you can use them to flush the eyes, the nose, the ears. It's safe. It's just a sterile solution that basically just, you can clean up your dog if you're getting ready to stitch up a wound, or if you're getting ready to wrap it, flush it out really good. If it's really dirty, because these dogs are running around in dirt and mud and stuff like that. So clean it up. I mean, that's an important part of wound care, is cleaning the wound first and then preventing infection, and then wrapping it up. And that's what the idea is. Wrapping it up is stop the bleeding, first of all. And this is, I'm not a veterinarian, but this has all been gone through by multiple veterinarians, and they all approve of it. And to be honest with you, a wound is a wound. I mean,
sure.
Basically to stop, and that's what this kit is about. This kit is designed to stop what's going on immediately. It's not a bunch of fluff. It's to stop what's going on, reverse the process, and get your dog to the vet. Or this is all stuff that I've used like I said, as an EMT for 27 years. And this is all the stuff that's used by veterinarians, by nurses, by doctors, by paramedics throughout the country. This is not cheap quality stuff. This is top of the line medical grade equipment in this aid kit. So, and like I said, I've used.
Speaking of that sort of thing, this all my friends who served over there way back in the day were using a version of this. It was pioneered, I think, in Israel, but now it's what you call a hemostatic granule. And this, I think this might be the best part of most kits, and most people probably do not get their hands on it. Let's talk a little bit about how you use that in a first aid situation.
Yeah, so the stuff you're talking about, just Celox, and they use this in combat, and basically it's a coagulant to where you've got heavy bleeding, can't really get to it, you need to stop it. You would pour this into the wound, you'd apply pressure on like every other wound, you'd wrap up the wound to protect it, to stop the bleeding, and you get the dog to the vet. In fact, I've had feedback about a month ago. Waterfowl dog, been one of our customers, his dog had been shot by a client they were guiding. He was guiding them, and he ended up getting shot. Well, they ended up using this stuff and getting the dog to the vet, and the vet gave him feedback and said, yeah, if you wouldn't have probably done what you did, had the aid kit and applied the stuff and put the pressure on, your dog probably wouldn't have been here. So it was a great feedback, great story. And I know that our kit made a difference in one dog, actually more than one dog, but just that kind of feedback it just makes everything worthwhile to me.
I love it, and it's absolutely true, and I hope I never have to use it, but I'm glad I have it with me now. Now, there's a bunch of sterile gauze pads. There's some first aid tape of various sorts. There's a couple antibiotics of one sort or another. All have their uses. Going over to the other side, because the first thing, of course, you find is, and there it is right there. It doesn't sound cold, but even when it's not deployed, it feels a little cold. And you talked about why to use that. The other thing that I've learned the hard way is once you use this stuff, make sure you put it back, replace that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, behind the tweezers and all of that, I've got a roll of whatever you call it. I call it Coflex or vet wrap. And then a bunch more gauze bandages and that sort of thing. We all have trouble, and I live this every day because I live amongst the barbed wire and the porcupines. But wrapping a dog's wound is not easy, and quite often we learn the hard way that we did it wrong. It's easy to do on a leg because you just keep twirling, but a body cut or something like that, we need a lot of wrapping, don't we?
You absolutely do, and that's the thing. It's like people how do you stop an ear wound? That bleeds a lot.
Oh gosh,
that is something, and it's not, you're not wrapping that ear. You're wrapping the ear to the head.
Yeah,
you're wrapping the entire head to put pressure on the ear. It's just, and the same thing. You got a body wound. You have to wrap that entire head. So that's why we've got this stuff. And you get a good wound, you're gonna use a majority of this stuff just to protect that dog, just to wrap it, again, that's what you're doing. You're stopping the bleeding and you're preventing infection. And so, you're spot on as far as you're going to need a lot of stuff depending on where it's at.
Yeah, don't cheap out on the bandage or the Coflex or anything like that. It's the one first aid emergency you're going to have that day, believe me. It's like, I remember when I was teaching fly fishing and teaching people how to tie the knots, and the leader to the fly and all, and they'd try to save that half inch of leader material and try to tie the knot with this little tiny tag. And I said, the leader is cheap, man. Just use a couple 4 inches and tie it the easy way and then cut it off.
That's right.
That's right. So if you were, as a guy who's been around the block a few times, dealing with open wounds and bleeding and all that, what do we do wrong when we generally wrap a bandage?
So the couple of things that guys do wrong is, once you wrap it, don't look at it. It's done. Wrap it for applying pressure. It's done.
Yeah.
Make sure it's snug.
Yeah.
Make sure you're doing the pressure right. Keep the wound elevated. There's things about if you keep the wound above the heart. That's kind of what the goal is. If you got a wound that's bleeding quite a bit, try to keep that injury above the heart, or level or above the heart if you can.
Yeah.
Apply good pressure on it. Not enough pressure where it shuts off the circulation.
Yeah.
in the dog, but good pressure, and then get the dog to the vet, or the person to the vet, because this is stuff, like I said, that I've had customers reach out to me and said, I've used this kit on myself, which I have literally used this kit on myself multiple times. Just because, like you said, I live amongst the porcupines and the firewalkers.
It's so true. I want to just interject, because the bandaging thing, again, many of us learned this the hard way, and luckily, 2 things that have saved my dogs over the years. First off, if that bandage, especially on an extremity, on a leg, for example, or even a foot, if you wrap too tight, number one, circulation is cut off, and your dog, above the wrap, your dog's leg will swell up. It'll look disgusting. Below it, you got no circulation. You got risks from that. Check the temperature of your dog's pads. Compare a pad that's not wrapped with a pad that is wrapped. And if that dog's pad is cold, you're too tight on that. So just be careful about those sort of things. And remember that the bandage is there to hold, I'm sorry, the wrapping is there just to hold the bandage in place.
Correct.
And you do want a little pressure, but you don't want, at that point, you're just holding the bandage in place to a great degree.
That's exactly right.
So the proverbial question is, this is so funny. So once Manny broke a couple toes, and so they had to put him in a splint, basically. And they got some of this Coflex, the stretchy gauze wrapping paper that some people call vet wrap. And they had a brand that had, all on every inch of it, it was printed. No chew, no chew, no chew. Yeah. I said, he doesn't know how to read. And I can't believe it. They'd never heard that before. But have you ever come up with a way to get your dog not to mess with that bandage?
No, what the best thing is just to get one of those cones. They look like a satellite dish running around, honestly. That's what I figured.
I've had a little bit of luck, though. If it's in the right place, you can take the sock that you were going to donate to somebody else, put that sock on there, and then wrap the sock a little bit, and maybe that'll help. But you're absolutely, and none of those sprays. You can't spray. And like I said, he's not going to be able to read that anyway.
No, that's the best thing. And if you were to go to a vet, that's what they're going to do. They're going to give you a cone, and they're going to just say, put your dog in this cone so he doesn't chew his leg off, because they're animals. They're just, and it starts itching, and it So, but when you do that,
there are soft cones now. There are inflatable cones now. So it doesn't always have to look like the satellite dish.
No, not at all. So,
The kit is incredible. It really is. Now it's a little big, but you can mount it in any number of ways. And I guess that's what impressed me most when I was messing with it first. You got a carabiner, you got 2 or 3 pieces of Velcro, you got snaps, you got all these ways you can attach it to your hunting vest. Yep. And it's not that onerous or that big that you won't take it. And that is the key. I talk about this with survival kits. I talk about this with my first aid gear. It's all the same. If it's too daunting, you won't bring it, and then you're going to regret it.
Correct. And that's the biggest thing that I have seen in these aid kits, because this is an aid kit I put together, and I carried it around when I was guiding, when I was traveling, filming the TV shows, doing all that stuff. This is my personal kit, and this is like, I call it a no nonsense, pretty much combat medic kit. It's to stop what's going on with the dog, reverse the process, and get him to the vet or to a human, to the doctor. That's all this is. It's not a bunch of fluff in here. It's not a bunch of, there's things you can add on here. You can in this room too, if you want to carry some alcohol pads or alcohol, because that's wonderful cooling dogs down, is you put alcohol in their pads of their feet and it cools them down. Or if you put Benadryl in here, you can carry that for possibly snake bites. I've heard that works pretty well. So you can put bandages for yourself if you want to, although you can make your own bandages out here. And one thing that I don't know if we talked about, Scott, but we have a pretty special program that if you follow us, if you buy one of these kits and you follow us on social media, on Instagram or Facebook at Gundog Outdoors, if you use any of this product and you give us a little bit of love in social media, just saying thanks Gundog or whatever, posting something, we'll replace whatever you use in that kit for the lifetime of that kit. So essentially, I love it. You've got a kit for the rest of your life that I will stock for you, because that's how important and how passionate we are as a company on taking care of these dogs. It's like it is when someone leaves the booth or purchases it from us, and I see that, it just gives me a great peace of mind knowing that person is gonna be okay. I mean, at least he has the tools if something bad is to happen to help him out or help whoever he is working on, or she is. So anyway,
I love it. That is fantastic in a lot of ways. And getting back to all of us who tie the fly on with 1/2 inch attack. Now we don't have to worry about it. He's going to give us tippet material for the rest of our lives. I love that. Fantastic. And that's on social. So Instagram, and where else?
Facebook and Instagram. That's our two big.
Gundog Outdoors, just chase it down and remember that. Hopefully most of us won't have to replace a lot of this stuff, but it's as much for convenience, and you'll find a million uses for all these things, no doubt about it. So one more thing I really want to cover with you, because of your background in emergency medical response and military and everything else. If we were, at the end of a hunt, our dog is up on the tailgate, and we are really jonesing for what's in the cooler next to us, but we got to take care of our dog first. What are you going to look for on your dog when he or she is up on that tailgate?
As far the thing is, you just do a quick inspection every time your dog is up with you. Just look at it, just make sure that you don't see any blood anywhere. Look to make sure you don't have any thorns. Just to pay attention. You know what your dog is going to be like, and the more you hunt, you know how your dog's going to react after a good push or a good drive, or when they come back with that duck in his mouth. Just look and make sure they're acting normal, and just do a quick once over them, and if they need water, give them water. Make sure you're giving them water throughout the day. This is one thing that I see a lot of, is guys who go out field goose hunting in December or January when it's cold out there. But these dogs are running back and forth maybe 20 times, like I said, it's at full speed. They come back and they're thirsty. I got video of my dog. It's 15 degrees out, and she's panting as hard because she's busting her tail to get me my birds, retrieving multiple birds. And so just making sure they get water, because you're not very thirsty when we drink our coffee and are blind, or we sip out of our water, but we don't think we're not working like they are. And so that's one thing I see a lot, is like just really making sure your dog is hydrated. That is so important. Even when it's cold weather, your dog can go into, dehydration mode. If they don't, you don't think about when you're duck hunting because they're right there. But if you're how many times have you been hunting and all of a sudden you find your dog laying in a creek or drinking water?
Yeah.
Make sure you got water for your dogs when they come back. We carry some great tools. We got collapsible water bowls that we have. They're cheap. They fit in your pack. If you need to feed them, we have this great tool that it's a water bottle for dogs, and it holds 16 ounces of water. I tell guys, throw an extra bottle for yourself or whatever. It comes with a built-in cup. You simply just gravity fed, you pour it down, the dog drinks right out of the cup. There's no waste of water. No waste. You don't have to pour it in your hand anymore. It's just a great tool, again, to keep that dog hydrated, whether it be pheasant hunting in early October or goose hunting in Montana in January. It's so important to keep those dogs hydrated.
Yeah, there's all sorts of great stuff at the website, gundogoutdoors.com, and we could spend another hour talking about the other gear as well, but this is the one that I think will benefit the most people the most often. It is an incredibly comprehensive kit that is still portable enough, and like I said, you don't need to jam it into your vest. You can attach it just like you would any other piece of any other accessory, for example. Alex, great eye-opening information. Your experience as a medic has really come in handy when you put this together, and especially if we will heed some of your advice. One more time, gundogoutdoors.com is where we find that information. Alex Langbell, enjoyed our talk. Sure glad we met out there at Omaha. Thanks again. Good luck. And thanks for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast.
You betcha. Thank you so much, Scott. And thank you for everything that you do on bringing awareness and education for all of our dogs and everything you do. So we need more guys like you to step up and do what you're doing. So thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. And thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
And the rest of you, we're covering the Upland Nation glossary in just a moment or two, and some more talk about why or why not take a newcomer hunting. And then we'll drop the subject, I promise, after this one, because it could go on forever at the rate things are going in that debate. But first off, where was I? Oh, yeah. Let me remind you that we are brought to you by Dr. Tim's Natural Performance Dog Food. He's got a formulation for every life stage of your dog, every activity level that your dog, and Dr. Tim Hunt knows his stuff. You talk about active dogs. This guy's a sled dog racer and a veterinarian. So he's got it all figured out, from the ingredients to the types of protein sources. Everything is right there. Plus, now he offers supplements, toppers, and other treat kind of things, as well as all the stuff that can bring your dog to peak performance. Always free delivery, 30% off your first order. Just use the code UplandNation at DRTIMS.com. And I got a frantic text yesterday from a friend who said, I forgot to ask you when we were together yesterday, do you have any starter pistols? And I said, one, but I hardly ever use it because it's so bad. And I offered some other advice. Maybe I'll answer that question sometime down the road. But that's bad enough. But it's worse when you're shopping for a shotgun. I have a friend who runs the hunting department in a big box retailer, and he said, man, we got like 9, and that's it. If you're shopping for a shotgun and you can't find one, then I suggest, especially in the world of Browning shotguns, you reach out to midvalleyclays.com. They have a very special relationship with the Browning crew because owner Dave Fiedler is an instructor competitor and works very closely with the folks at Browning. So if you're searching for your next Browning shotgun, especially an auto loader for field work, for example, they've got them. The new Maxxis 2 may just give you pause for thought. It's lighter. It loads and unloads easily. It's very reliable. You can adjust the stock. All of those things are important to almost all of us most of the time if we want to shoot well. MidValleyClays.com is where you can browse the entire selection of guns that they have and guns that they might be able to get more readily than other dealers. So learn more about the Browning Maxxis 2 line and all the other offerings at MidValleyClays.com. Okay, welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, your host. Thanks again, Alex. Learned a lot, and I'll put a link to Alex's website and his socials at the Upland Nation podcast page, just in case you are interested in learning more about all of his great gear. And in the meanwhile, let's jump into the Upland Nation glossary. Yes, it's our adventure through the alphabet, and we are now up to I. And again, kind of skinny in the I category. So if you have any suggestions, just pop me a note somewhere on Facebook or anywhere else, wherever you correspond with me. I'd appreciate that. In our glossary, I stands for instinctive, among other things. And if you follow the podcast or you're a student of shooting styles, you know, sometimes it's called the Churchill style. Instinctive style is basically trusting your hand-eye coordination and gun fit to put the shot string in the bird's trajectory, rather than all the other shooting styles from lead to pull through and swing through or sustained lead. All of those things are different styles. Instinctive basically is see the bird, mount the gun, pull the trigger, bang, without all of that thinking process about where you put the muzzle. In fact, in the instinctive style, you shouldn't even think about, let alone look at, the gun barrel. Speaking of Facebook, a recent survey on the Upland Nation Insights newsletter, I asked if you would take a newcomer hunting next season, and we carry on from last week where I began that discussion. It just got hotter and hotter. 7% of you said, no, I will not take any new hunters hunting. And, I got to tell you, there are a lot of good reasons for that, especially if you've been burned in the past. So I understand that. And I'm sorry that you feel that way. Not going to dwell on a lot of that, but it is important to cover some of the things that some of you pointed out that may actually help somebody get over the hump and decide they will take somebody hunting. Chad Olenschlager says, have you ever seen a non-hunter's gun handling skills? Okay, shot dog story, blah, blah, pass the buck, etc. I get it. But Chad is still glad to help a new kid get started. Dan Barron's tired of getting his butt chewed for all the things that his so-called guests did in the past. And I understand that. Maybe we need to just choose our partners a little bit more carefully. That seems to be the motif with a lot of the horror stories. Dennis Sullivan, good on you. You for 30 years did that with the youth hunting program in Illinois. Way to go. He says, and this is great, there would be some lead-up conversation about shooting etiquette, very strict adherence to the rules. And Dennis leaves with this thought, probably of value to everybody. We need to promote our passions or they will disappear. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but amen to that. All right. Ken Blackman, I great story. Love it all. In his 7th decade here on God's great earth, he says, wants to be careful about all of that stuff, and I understand that. Ross Calloway says, no, before long, the bastard will have his rig parked in my hunting spots. Well, if they're your hunting spots, just post them and keep everybody away, Ross. I mean, that would be the easy way to do it, but we won't go down that rabbit hole at all either. But Thomas Makowiak, I hope I said that right, Makowiak, he says, I don't mind taking new hunters chucker hunting in Nevada. They can't hit them anyway, but they get a nice hike and thank you with beer later. By the way, he says, that's how I started, and I still can't hit them. Hey, we're in the same boat. Let's form a club. All right. I get all of that. I get it all. I just hope that some of you will use this as a learning experience. And maybe the only thing we could take from this that's positive is, yes, pick your guests carefully, instruct them carefully, maybe start at the range. That might be the best way to learn and help them learn more about firearms safety. Okay, now I have talked about this for a while, and we're getting down to the wire here. So if you want to win a Mossberg shotgun, over and under Silver Reserve shotgun, or a few other prizes that I'll toss in as well, you need to nominate your hero, and that's HEAR-OH. Audio Cardio, that's the hearing physical therapy app that I talked about earlier. They're going to give away a Mossberg shotgun and a few other things when you nominate somebody who deserves a year's subscription to that hearing app. Yeah, a whole year of physical therapy for their ears. If you have a mentor, friend, spouse, parent, it doesn't matter who, just go on the site at my Facebook page, Wing Shooting USA Facebook page. There's a post pinned at the top. Click on that. You'll go to the site, and you will be able to nominate your hero for a free year of that app. Physical therapy for your ears. You could win a shotgun, and they could win better hearing. And on that note, yeah, that one right there, it's time to say goodbye. I sure appreciate your listening. I thank you, Alex Langbell, for all of that great information about how to better take care of our dogs, our hunting buddies, and even ourselves in the field with your great Gundog Outdoors Field Trauma Kit. If you want to learn more about that, go to gundogoutdoors.com. Thank you for leaving a great rating or a review. I sure appreciate that. Those who have and those who might, if I ask nicely. And I will close with a quote from somebody who is anonymous. I get it, though, and we can probably all take credit for something along these lines. Without my dog, my wallet would be full, my house would be clean, but my heart would be empty. Well said. And if you are heading out with your dog, enjoy it, be safe. I'm Scott Linden. Thanks for listening to the Upland Nation podcast. Until next week, maybe I'll see you at the range.